What is good? We're back. We have the Sultan of Swing, the Prince of PWOPR. Joseph, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Wasn't doing super great on Saturday. Go Dogs. It was a tough time, but you live, you learn, and you suffer, and you recover one day. So,
yeah, you just needed to seal that edge up a little bit more on third down, and you might be singing a different story.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if we don't come out with all of our backups and then run it with our fourth string running back, what do you do? But
hey, those are choices that were made.
Yeah. People make a lot more money than I do.
That's right.
Choices. So
that's right. So this is we do the Tuesday show. We have Joseph has a route-based hero article that goes up on PFF, and he also has created the predictive WOPR, which we've been going through all season long here. It has been outstanding. And then your season long metric has been, as good, right?
Yeah. No, before the season, I published it on my Substack and I wrote about it, but I basically ran the same kind of model framework that I run each week. I did it on the entirety of the 2024 season to predict who could break out in the 2025 season. And currently 4 of the top 5 wide receivers were on my breakout list, right? So George Pickens, Rome Odunze, I'm currently blanking. George Pickens, Rome Odunze, Puka, and one more. What was the one more player? One more player ended up breaking out as well. So I'm pretty happy about them. They ended up happening like that. And hopefully that continues because right now my best ball teams are looking pretty good. I think I'm at some kind of 50% plus placement rate on my best ball teams. I'm sure that won't stand with injuries and everything,
right.
But I'm pretty happy with how the season long model's working out. And the weekly model's also been doing pretty dang good. We had 3 top 10 wide receivers show up on the model. So
that's right.
This past week.
And so, I know you could be looking around and saying, well, Puka was already broken out, but the point was that it thought he was going to do even better than last year. And we're all on track with that, right?
Exactly. And that's the whole point of this model framework is, will you be better than you were before, right? It's not like, will you be great or will you be bad or anything like that. It is, will you be better than you were? And so it's really player relative, right? It's all about relative to the given player. Can they exceed their expectations? So Puka showing up on the list was really, a huge flag to say, hey, this is a player that has wide receiver 1 potential. And we all knew he had wide receiver 1 potential, but it was kind of the advanced analytics were saying, this is likely to happen. And currently we're seeing it happen.
Right. And we've been talking about him on the football show and other shows of I think right now he's for sure the best wide receiver in the league. I mean, obviously fantasy points, with Holden, just from what's going on and how they're using him and how he's performing out there. I think he's the best receiver in the league right now. He's so much fun to watch and so hard to deal with.
Yeah. I'm the biggest Puka lover in the world. So
yeah. I love it. So, and then last week to recap, we've been kind of recapping this every week and it's been awesome. We've had guys like Thornton when he was blowing up and Trey Tucker as he was blowing up and Alec Pierce as he's had some good games. And then last week we had a lot of groupings kind of pop up on this. We had Vikings, Atlanta, and Eagles. So 2 of those 3 groupings really smashed for you. Obviously Justin Jefferson, you could say, oh, well, but again, he was predicted to do better than he had been averaging, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And he did better than he's been averaging this season. Correct. And he did better than his career average, right? That's the whole point. It's sure, he had a good game, but it's when can you predict them to do better than their average, right? That's what we really care about because that's how you get these explosion games. That's how you get the Trey Tucker 41-point games, right? Is when we can predict situations in which they will do better than their average. That often leads to situations they will do far better than their average. And that's how you can win at DFS and win in your fantasy leagues and everything.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Then you can make all of these things, but then you have to figure out how to apply them practically. And in this case, Jefferson and Naylor was on there. So when we talked about it, Naylor came out and scored a touchdown, but we even talked about Addison coming back and how that could affect him. He got a touchdown and 2 points. Didn't really do anything else, but he still performed above what we thought might happen. And he keeps popping up on it. So in Dynasty, you want to use that as, okay, this guy's a cheaper asset, get him and throw it in trades. In DFS, maybe I want to play Jefferson this week. Maybe the value's down on him a little bit. So in redraft, I want to start this guy as a streamer if I need big points. So there's all sorts of different ways to apply all of this stuff that's really important that we've been trying to talk through every week. If you've missed it, it's been great stuff so far.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. Like that is like exactly how I propose this list and this model to be used is exactly how you said. Like for Dynasty, these should be like for the cheaper players, it should be a throw in. For
Right.
redraft, these should be considered like if it's helping you with a start sit decision or if it's helping you pick up someone off the waivers, right? Like in in sports betting, you can use it for different reasons. Like there's just so many uses for this kind of these underlying metrics are predicting breakouts and they do it successfully. Like I hope I've proven it to anybody who's doubted it so far.
No,
we have nailed this.
I've been, this is certainly my first year following all of this with you, and it's been outstanding. And if you're not tuned in already, make sure you're watching Bet on It with Joseph and Chev and Jeremiah. Some really good stuff and some great explanations of, again, applicable things that you could be using in all facets of things. So make sure you're tuning into that. That's typically a Friday live show. So make sure you're dialed in there. You shouldn't be missing that. So we had the Vikings in a duo. We had Atlanta in a duo. Again, Drake London hadn't been performing. Huge breakout game. Mooney got hurt in this one. Was looking like he dropped the big splash play. So that was there as well. Penix over 300 yards passing. So all of these things, again, useful in so many different ways.
Yeah, and that's like I think if Jalen Hurts had a yard in the second half, maybe some other players break out, but
yeah,
I do worry a little bit about that passing situation, and we'll get to it. But those are two players that show up on this week's list as well. Part of this list is if you are receiving consistent either opportunity or predicted opportunity, you will consistently show up on this list until you break out. The entire point is your projected fantasy points given your PWOPR versus your actual fantasy points. And that difference is what causes you to show up on this list and that's like a need, right? So it's just a mathematical need to regress to the mean, right? Like that's just like a foundation in the NFL. So that's what this is based off of. And it is mathematically proven. And I hope that people are seeing it this year and realizing, dang, math can help me win football. So
absolutely. So Eagles on last week's list was a little bit of a bust. There was some good targets for AJ Brown, but not a single yard in the second half passing wise. So that was a little rough. And we've been talking about all over the place the struggles of the Eagles passing attack a little bit. What's good? You know the phrase, the house always wins. Well, not anymore with our new sponsor, Profit X. Profit X, America's #1 sports prediction market, is a peer-to-peer sports prediction market where users play against each other instead of a sports book versus the house. You almost always get the best price in any spread, money line, total, and player prop since you're playing against other people rather than the book. It looks just like a sports book, but with way better odds. So what are you waiting for? Go download the app and use promo code FFD to claim up to $200 in profit cash on all the plays you use in the first 30 days of playing on site. Link in the description. Now, let's get down to business. It's Monday. Don't have a whole lot of options on props in that, which is more along the lines of what I like to play. But the Thursday night game is San Fran at the Rams. Early indication, Purdy doesn't play. It's McCorkle Jones. Looks like Pearsall might be out. Looks like Jennings might be out. Defensive line already lost Bosa. We've got the LA Rams -5.5 at home on a short week. I like the Rams here. Hurts my heart to say the Niners have had, kind of been the Rams daddy for the 10-year between McVay and Shanny, but recently McVay's gotten the best of him, and I think he gets it again. So LA Rams -5.5. Use promo code FFD. What are you waiting for? Download Profit X. Why haven't you done it? Do it. Olave was on the list. He got a touchdown, but he showed up in your Coach I Was Open article as well, right?
That'll be a fun thing to get into this week. But I write 2 articles for PFF. One is about route-based heroes, which is about kind of exceeding your fantasy points and who can achieve that. And the other is about players that were wide open in a given week, and then they just weren't getting the targets that they should. We see that it is also mathematically provable that in the next week, that player will receive more targets, almost certainly. I mean, it's not a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee, but a lot of the time they receive more targets in upcoming weeks. So Chris Olave shows up as like one of the top Coach I Was Open. He was open a lot against the Bills. Rattler just wasn't getting him the ball.
Yeah, and we talked about it off air. Like Rattler's one of those quarterbacks as things go, like you would think quarterbacks continue to improve. And I'm sure Rattler can continue to improve, but like there's also some times where they start off and it's pretty good. They're excited. There's confidence. And then teams start to figure out a little bit because you're not necessarily a high level starter. And so things might start getting a little worse for Rattler as things go on, as opposed to better as things go on potentially. But Olave is doing his part. So continue to buy and play Olave. And then Garrett Wilson, top 10 receiver last year. Or top 10 receiver last week. So fantastic route-based heroes as we've seen all year long. So let's move into this week, Joseph. And who do we have on this week? We got some repeats.
I think
that's a pretty standard thing, right? If they didn't quite
exactly,
yeah.
If they're on the list in week 4 and they don't do what they need to do, if they can, and the important part is they still are performing well. So if they stop performing well, they won't show up on the list, right? But if they are consistently performing well, and by performing well, I mean getting open, right, getting targets, right? Like they or not getting targets, but they're getting open. If they are consistently doing these things, they will still show up on the list, because the whole point is that PWOPR is stable, right? It's a stable line. Fantasy points goes up and down. Fantasy points has to eventually reach up to PWOPR, right? It will eventually happen for any player. As long as their PWOPR is good, fantasy points will eventually catch up.
Right.
And so in this list,
Eagles make a list again.
Eagles make a list again. That's exactly where we're going. And I think that the big concern I have, and this is a take that I've been saving for you, Casey, but I think that the Eagles are more similar to the Jets than people want to realize. I know they both have a 4 in their win-loss record, and maybe one's on the right side and one's on the wrong side. But I think the Eagles are in trouble. I really do. I think if they continue to play like they've been playing, if they find a passing attack, if they actually start pushing this ball, my worries go away. But if you look at like earned drive points, if you look at like EPA per play and how they've like played in these games, they really should probably be like 2-2. Mm-hmm. Like they've kind of snuck away with 4-0, even against the Buccaneers. They just came out
at the end.
Exactly. And the fumble that maybe wasn't a fumble. I mean, like they just come out and they've kind of just gotten a little lucky. And I think that we may not continue to see that in the future. Yeah. And in a game where the Eagles are losing by 14 instead of winning, hopefully AJ Brown and Devonta Smith can finally.
And we saw that, right? In the game that they trailed, opposite of this last game where they were up big, they trailed in the third game or second game, and they did have to put the pedal to the metal, and you finally saw AJ Brown kind of break out a little bit there.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that we will see that one day. I don't know when we'll see that, but I think that we'll see that. Jalen Hurts is probably going to pass for 300. And, if you're listening to bet on it, you'll probably win a lot of money that week. So
yeah, I've been actually kind of hammering that all on the NFL show recap situation of just like they've got a unproven OC right now who's got to figure some things out, and because they're a very good team, because the continuity of Vic Fangio on defense, which is I feel like the Chiefs dynasty is obviously built on Patrick Mahomes, but it's also built that their DC was already a head coach, so he didn't get plucked away from them, so he got to draft and develop every guy he wants. And the Eagles are in the same position, and they've got a great front office, and they're good at the cap, and they're good at all of these things, and they're a good team. So they're able to play. Like, it doesn't matter really how you win in the NFL. You don't get style points for it, but we should be a little bit concerned that the passing attack has been very, very dormant. And so that has been something I've stayed on, and I'm not trying to hate on the Eagles because I think they're awesome. And everything's there. I do worry about the guy who's calling plays right now, and where he can get this team to, because it doesn't necessarily matter right now. Just wins matter. But when we get to November and December, are they going to make the necessary adjustments to when bigger games happen and games matter and people have figured them out, and maybe some luck runs out and a couple of things here and there? Can they get it done? And that I think that's a fair question right now.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair question. Even the Buccaneers, like they were such a perfect time for AJ Brown and Devonta Smith to break out. Like the Buccaneers just have like this elite run defense, but when you block a punt at the beginning of the game and then get lucky with some fumbles and, like it just as the game goes on, well, now you don't need to pass it. Or when you do pass it, you don't need to be aggressive and you just kind of have this lead. And then Baker's making stupid mistakes, even when he's passing for a ton of yards and they're having a great game, he's making stupid mistakes. And I just don't think that you're going to get that lucky the whole season.
Right.
And eventually we're going to see either the passing attack is going to have to happen, or we're going to learn a lot about the Eagles and how this might be a rough year. Correct.
All right. We got another duo on this list. We got some Raiders on here, and Gino's been up and down throwing some turnovers, but then he's had some solid performances as well. So we have Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers making the list this week. I love Jacoby, and of course everybody loves Brock, but he's been a little banged up. I think that's contributing to some of that, but both those guys make the list this week.
Yeah, no, I think that Jacoby Myers is like a PWOPR hero. Like he's always in the PWOPR and he's always doing good. Like Jacoby Myers is like one of those players no one wants, but he's kind of always doing awesome. And so I suspect that he will have the ability to do something this week. The Colts are one of those teams that generally sit back. They play a lot of good coverage, but they don't really play a lot of single coverage situations. So I think that this is a situation in which especially Brock Bowers could have a great game, and go Dogs, by the way. Anytime a Georgia player shows up, I got to say something, but I think that Brock Bowers could have a really good game against the Colts. And I think that, we'll see what happens with Jacoby Myers, but I think that, as long as Geno Smith isn't out here throwing 3 interceptions all the time, he could also have a pretty big bounce back game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, we've been huge Jacoby Myers, so I like that. I feel like that should be coming. Both of those guys are really due to. Jacoby's been great, but I feel like I can get down with that. Chris Olave makes the list again. I think we kind of covered that. Like he was really good last week, right?
Exactly.
And didn't quite amass everything. He saved you with the TD, but that's why he makes the list again, right?
Exactly. He just didn't have he was open a lot and he didn't have a great game. And when that happens, you will show up on this list. Like if that consistently
So would you come even more confidently on Chris Olave this week? I know no Diddy there.
Yeah, no, I typically do that. And I don't know if it's a smart thing to do or not, but it's worked out for me in the past. But usually the more you're showing up on this list, the better your future prospects. I will say that when it's a bad offense, it starts getting me I'm like, well, I don't know. Like it might just be a really underperforming offense. And then usually when I think that, the player goes off.
Yeah.
But it's one of those situations where he could be on the list for 4 weeks. And one of those weeks he's going to explode. And with a player like AJ Brown or a player like, Justin Jefferson showing up on the list, it's like, okay, that's a must start. It's like if Justin Jefferson's on this list, I'm playing him. And I don't mean just like in fantasy. I mean like DFS. I mean,
see if you can find a prop or an alt line that you like.
Exactly.
Right.
That's like a no question. That's what I'm doing. Justin Jefferson's on this list. He's going to hit 80% of the time, right? Yeah. In a situation like that. With Chris Olave, with Spencer Rattler, the Saints, it's like, I don't really know. I don't know if they have the capability of supporting Chris Olave to the extent that he needs to be supported. And I feel the same way about Garrett Wilson. He happened to hit last week, but that could have taken 3 weeks, right? With this awful passing attack. I mean, it is rough. It is so rough. It could have taken a few weeks for him to hit, but thankfully he hit last week. And Chris Olave could be in a situation where it might take him a few weeks, but I think that, just to check, they play the Giants this week, which I think is a pretty good matchup for them. I mean, the Giants allow a lot of single coverage. Chris Olave is
good last week. The front four is good, but we'll see. They got really up last week and had the Jackson Dart juice. So this is a typical kind of letdown spot where they got the Saints. They should come out here and roll. And look, they just beat the Chargers, but this happens week after week in the league.
You're spot on. And that's it goes to the entire framework of this model, regression to the mean, right? Let's say it all together. Like this is still an NFL team. They're still playing like these, the best teams in the NFL, the worst teams in the NFL. They're really only probably maybe 2 touchdowns apart, right? On the worst days for teams, they really should only be about 2 touchdowns apart from a spread perspective, from what we're projecting. So I don't know. I think that this is a spot that absolutely he could bounce back. I would need to look into the more kind of advanced analytics on like the Giants defense at this point. But, I think this is a great potential bounce back spot for him.
Yeah. Speaking of bad offenses right now, Jerry Jeudy makes the list this week. We saw Tillman go out, and he's on IR now. So that's a bummer. Tillman, a big fan of Tillman on this show. But Jeudy makes the list, and he kind of fits into that. This is a kind of a bad offense right now. They're going overseas and playing Minnesota. Are they going to make a change at quarterback? Probably not this week against them. You wouldn't think. Maybe back home you make a change to somebody else. Is that going to be any better? I don't know. But so Jeudy confidently on this list this week, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the Vikings are such a defense that I'm terrified of.
Me too.
I'm terrified of them. They Brian Flores is just a beast, and they have this tendency to force bad decisions from quarterbacks, and they're pretty good at getting pressure and unblocked pressure. Joe Flacco isn't really good against pressure. So it's like one of those situations where it's like, I am definitely a little bit concerned, but he is their best receiving option, right? Yeah. Like he is, especially with Tillman out, he's like the no question number one. He's showing up on a list where he needs to positively regress. We just saw DK Metcalf go off against this defense. I think that it's not like all bad. Like I just don't think it's quite as good as seeing, the Brian Thomas Jr. on this list. Like that's a name where I'm like, oh, that's something
he's on the list.
Really interested
not
in.
The list you guys all want, but this list.
Yeah, he is on the route-based tiers this week, and he's a player that I'm pretty high on this week because even like the Chiefs' defense is pretty good, but they do allow a lot of single coverage situations. And give me Brian Thomas Jr. in single coverage situations. It's just, can Trevor Lawrence give the ball there? I don't know, maybe. And that's what I'll be, as far as like betting's concerned, I'll be betting on some alts for Brian Thomas Jr. probably. But as far as like, a player that could explode, I think this is what people have been wanting to see. Is Brian Thomas Jr. finally showing up on some kind of positive regression list? Like, is it finally time that he does something?
This is a rough matchup.
It is a rough matchup.
Chiefs and a good corner that can single them up, and a lot of pressure from Spags.
It is, and that's exactly when I would want to be betting on him. You know what I mean?
Good.
Like because he's a good enough player to get through it, right? Like it's more about like, right? Is this an elite player? And
you only need one play, really.
You really do, and I think the biggest worry for me is like, can Trevor Lawrence handle this? But it's like, can Trevor Lawrence pass for 250 yards? Yeah. Can Brian Thomas Jr. have 100 of those? Yeah. Like it's
and their defense is playing fantastic right now.
It is, and I hope that it's not a boring Monday night game. I think is it Monday night game this week?
I'm not sure.
I think it is. Yeah, it's the Monday night game. I hope it's not a boring Monday night game, but I think the most likely scenario is that these defenses make it a very boring Monday night game. But we can hope that
the big takeaway from this is that Brian Thomas Jr. is on the list, and things should be coming back to normal with what you expect from Brian Thomas here in the near future. Exactly. It might not quite be this week, and maybe he shows up on it next week and then bet everything he got on it.
I mean, maybe. I think that like that is a perfectly acceptable, and I think that's the most reasonable, correct response is that he's showing up. That is a really good sign. Like being on this list is a really good sign because it means we expect very positive things in your near future. Just ask Trey Tucker, just ask Drake London, just ask, Justin Jefferson, just ask Garrett Wilson, right? We expect positive things in your future, and he is on the list.
He's on the list. All right. Last but not least, we have, one of my personal favorites, Zay Flowers, making the list here. And, he's been great all season. We talked about him preseason about, giving him a lot of love, and he's their number one. So of course he should be getting, he should be continuing to get better and continue to get a lot of love. He's been mostly fantastic to start this, but how much do we consider Lamar being out on this list? I'm sure the model doesn't really care, but is it something that you should consider if you're using this example of Zay to either start or DFS or bet on?
Yeah, I think that I typically, unless like the downgrade at quarterback is to something unbearable, I typically don't really care. And that's for a few reasons. It's not a
terrible downgrade. They got one of the better backups potentially in the league. He's Cooper
Rush is not bad. Yeah, right. Cooper Rush is not a bad backup. And I think with the downgrade to, say, any quarterback, but to Cooper Rush, like if the Ravens are now in a situation where they need to pass the ball more, that's just going to mean more targets for Zay Flowers, right? Like if they start losing these games because they don't have Lamar, that just means more pass attempts.
Positive,
like it's not,
yeah,
it's not like I think that people are like, oh, the offense is bad now. And it's like, well, if it is like, if it goes down, if it's not as good as it was with Lamar, well, now the offense is going to probably be behind. Like they're probably going to be losing and they're going to need to pass more. So that's a situation in which I am more interested in Zay than even when Lamar's there, because if they're playing from behind and they need to pass, that's just more targets. That's just more targets he can earn. It's more times he's open. That just means more fantasy points for us at some point.
They have the Texans this week, and I think they'll get Derrick Henry more involved in just trying to keep this game a little more balanced than typical of like where they've been at here. So that could play into this. But we talked about this a little bit before the show started, and you're building like a model, which is why we talk about a defensive model here. But we've seen the Ravens defense be so bad that should potentially help Zay Flowers and a backup quarterback as well, right? And then the same kind of theory that you were saying, hey, there's a better than likely chance that they can be down because the Texans aren't great, but yeah, and especially with all the injuries. I mean, the Ravens might be the most injured team in the NFL at this moment. I mean, they are just decimated. But I think that like it gets a little bit tricky on saying that because it's really like a kind of like this multi-step of like if then this. And this and this and this. So it's like saying like, oh, bad defense means good wide receiver. Not necessarily, but bad defense could mean, and again, that's the really important word there. It could mean, oh, you need to keep up. And the only way you keep up is through passing the ball. Right. Like it could mean those things. And so I absolutely think, yes, it could mean that. It might not, but it could. Yeah. All right. Well, that's this week's list of route-based heroes. If you're not already checking it out, and this hasn't sold you of all, what we do the recap in the beginning is just proof of concept, right? We want to show you that this is happening and what's going on, and then again, how you apply this. There's many different ways, and we're going to keep hammering out what to do. Not so many buy lows on this particular version of this one here, but some hopium for some players and some fun potential starts here. Joseph, where can we find all the stuff that we've been talking about?
Yeah, you can find me on both Twitter and Substack at Koala TY Stats, and I publish a more thorough, in-depth breakdown of everything we've talked about here. I publish that on Fridays through PFF.com. You can just search my name; it shows up in the DFS section as well. But I actually write up like, okay, does this player have the ability to break out? Right, like what does the defense look like? What are these advanced analytics telling us? Because like some defenses, like middle of the field closed defenses, single high defenses are really good for wide receiver targets. They're like really good for wide receivers to have the ability to break out, while middle of the field open defenses, cover 2, cover 4, stuff like that, are really good for tight ends to break out. Mm-hmm. So when you start like taking that into account, and some wide receivers are good against middle of the field open, it's just less common. But taking that all into account, like what defenses are getting pressure, what defenses aren't, I put all that together.
San Francisco's playing a middle open team. Yeah, rack it up,
Well, exactly. Yeah. And my whole point is that I write that article on Fridays and I break it down and say like, oh, this is a player that legitimately has the potential to break out this week. They have all the right reasons to. And a lot of the time I'm right. So,
right. I love it. You're a very humble guy, but when you feel like I got this, you have no problem coming out here and you've backed it up so far, and it's been great. So make sure you're checking out Quality Stats. The amount of eucalyptus we got to give this guy to come on here every week is insane. It's so crazy. Make sure you're checking it out.
I got too much eucalyptus to just deal with. Right, my sinuses feel great. So.
Yeah. All right, we'll catch you guys next week. Peace.